Hi everyone, we'll be starting in a couple of seconds. We'll just wait for everybody to join us. Any comments or any questions regarding the session on psychometric testing, please put in the comment box and I'll try to answer. If not now, after the session, definitely. Okay, so I'll start a little bit introduction into myself. So I am Niharika Bhargav. I'm the founder of Psych for You. Psych for You is a startup which actually focuses on psychometric testing for corporates and individuals. I'm certified for over 16 tests, but I've also created in-house 4 different psychometric instruments. Today we'll be talking about demystifying psychometric assessments. So I think whenever anyone thinks about psychometric testing or even hears the name, they always get a little scared, right? So I want to actually debunk some of those myths and misconceptions regarding psychometric testing today. Okay, great. So I hope everyone's doing well. I hope everyone's got their booster vaccinations done. Are fit and healthy. I think in this pandemic time, it's most important that we focus on ourselves as well and focus on our families and friends around us and make sure we are responsible. Say we have a slight cough or not feeling well, avoid meeting people, avoid socializing, and wearing a mask at all times, right? So I think it's very important that we ensure that we follow all COVID precautions during these times. So, so a little bit about myself. So I have majored in psychology from University of Waterloo, Canada, and done my HR specialization. I did my master's in HR from London School of Economics. I've been an HR professional for over a decade, and I have almost 15 years of experience. For the last 9 years, I have been focusing on psychometric testing. So that I feel like now I've been able to actually understand exactly where to use it, why to use it, and how to use it. Right? I think those are all very important questions when we're focusing on psychometric testing. Now, the 10 misconceptions or the myths I want to focus on, the first being that psychometric testing is extremely expensive, so corporates don't want to get into it. They feel it's more costly actually investing into psychometric testing than it's better off not having them, right? So I think the return on investment is much higher for psychometric testing, and there's enough number of research actually promoting that we are able to reduce the cost for assessment centers by almost 50% if we actually include psychometric testing in our evaluation process. Another is attrition rate also gets reduced by almost more than 70%. Right? Um, we are also able to save end-to-end recruitment time. We were able to increase the pool of candidates to the second round by doubling that number. So there's so many different advantages of actually having psychometric test. So the cost is actually very less based on how many pros we get by actually having them in uh, as part of as a evaluation process. Now, the second myth is the fact that all the tests are same, right? So people always think of psychometric tests only as personality tests. Now, that's completely inaccurate because psychometric tests are numerical, they're verbal, they're abstract, they're logical reasoning, they're all different types of psychometric tests. So it's very important to understand the different types of psychometric tests and when we should use them, right? So they don't all measure the same thing, right? And while some tests might be high on validity and reliability, some tests might have a lower percentage of reliability. So it's very important to actually see and test them out before actually using them, right? So just don't use a popular test just because it's there, but because it's actually useful to use it, right? So that is the second psychometric, I would say, myth which people have, and that's why they don't use it. Now, the third myth is that people feel that the current circumstances influence or impact the results that we get in psychometric testing. Now, that's completely inaccurate, because definitely, the mood in which you are in, or say the emotion that you're depicting while you're doing a psychometric test gets captured, then enough number of reasons, or I think ways of being able to test in a psychometric test whether the person is faking it or not, right? Or the fact is, whether they're measuring the right thing. So what's important to understand is, when we're using a psychometric test, we have a lot of different questions measuring the same thing. So, to ensure that we can actually create and find a pattern versus just, capturing it once. So that actually makes sure that even if the person is in a certain mood, we're capturing the essence or the main core of the person, rather than, all the background noise. So it's very important to actually understand that. Okay. Another thing is that applicants lie, right? So of course, like, people will feel that by in psychometric tests, how are we able to filter those applicants that who lie? But as I said, then enough numbers instances for us to actually figure out if a person is trying to actually just fake or trying to please the person. So sometimes what happens is, a lot of people actually say that, can I ace a psychometric test, or can I actually, write, how do I master a psychometric test, right? So there's no one way of being able to do that, and it's more important to understand psychometric just gives you a good fit for the particular role, or particular, it tells you about your strengths, the areas of improvement, but it does not necessarily basically focus on trying to say that this is the only way, right? It says this, and it kind of, the organization is also looking for the good fit, but you're also looking at what actually, based on your personality, what are your preferences and what fits in your personality type, right? So that's very, very important to see, right? Also, all these psychometric tests are very standardized, right? So they have to pass a certain kind of level to be able to be published or be able to use, right? So all the psychometric tests which are out there, they have already been vetted. So when you're using them, you can be rest assured that they have used universal traits which are applicable for everybody. So it's not like, gender bias or race bias. It is basically, it is for everybody who's doing it, right? Now, a lot of people say that another myth which people think is that, my intuition is better, right? Or like, the way I interview is much better, better than using a psychometric test. Now, that is completely false, because what happens is, sometimes when you know certain information about a person, you have a certain kind of bias, right? And you kind of focus only on the positives of that person, and you kind of miss a lot of things about the person which you need to focus on. So what's important is, psychometric gives you a little more scientific explanation, and it also focuses and gives you a more holistic, view of the person, rather than just focusing on certain aspects which you think are important, right? So that's very important to understand, that psychometric will give you a more in-depth understanding of the person, which is very necessary when you are hiring a person, or taking them to the next level of promotion, or you're giving a certain depth of information, or wanting them to broaden their role, right? That myth is completely false. Okay, to believe that your intuition or your understanding of a person, that's enough for being able to take on a person, right? Another myth which people think is, I know my team best, right? Which of course you will, right? You will know your team best. But now what psychometric gives you is performance indicators. It connects what you know of the person, but it also gives a more added dimension, which actually helps in evaluating certain aspects of the person. Psychometric testing is the science of assessing the mental abilities and behavioral traits of an individual. Okay. So it does not only focus on basically what you can see, right? But it also gives a lot of insights into the subconscious of a person. Now, isn't that really good for us to know, right? So when we're getting this extra layer of information, why are we not taking it? And that's the whole question which I want everyone to focus on, is the fact that psychometric needs to be there, needs people need to be aware of it and start using it much more vigorously. Okay, so a question has come. If a psychometric test shows results show that someone may have traits that are incompatible with your team, is this a deal breaker or would this just be a myth? Okay, so this is still a myth, because normally what happens is you normally take people who are similar to the different other traits which other people have already in your team, right? So sometimes what happens is, if someone is also incompatible with your team, so say certain skills, they might give a different perspective, okay, to a certain problem solution or certain project which you are not seeing. So psychometric, by having the psychometric, that will give you that, I would say, you would be very clear that these are the traits which you already have. These are the traits you're looking for, and if someone matches that, that's actually excellent for you, right? So I definitely feel it's just a myth that do not hire people who are incompatible or not similar to the traits that you already have. Now, another myth which people focus on is that the fact that people do not have the time or patience to evaluate or interpret the results. Now, that is where, say, a person who has been certified for psychometric assessments, or consultants would be able to help you in that domain, right? Anybody who have a little bit of psychology background would be able to make you understand. And I think I've seen a lot of times people do the psychometric test, but after that, once they give that report to the candidate, they don't explain what it really means, right? So now this myth can be dispelled if that that added, I would say, I think you extend the help beyond just getting people to do the psychometric test. It's important that you actually give an explanation why you feel certain recommendations is important for that person, and because of those recommendations they could do better in their job, right? So I think what is important is to focus on is that it does not take that much time to interpret the results if you actually just make it simple, make it layman, make it easy for the person to understand, make them focus on the top three things which they need to focus on. That is how you can actually implement it much faster, make it actionable for the corporate, versus give them a report which is 30 pages which they're not going to read. So, I would say for consultants and for psychologists and for psychometric assessors, it's very important that you create a document which is easy for your customer to understand and implement. Now, another, I think, is a myth which people have is psychometrics are here to steal people's jobs. That is completely untrue. Okay, while psychometric testing is there, what I want you to believe and understand is the fact that psychometric testing only gives you an added layer of, I would say, recruitment or level of filtration, right? It does not make that ultimate selection for you. Now, that ultimate selection is only done when you see the gamut, right? You see how the person performs, how the person is good in their action points, how is that person, behaving in certain situations, and use psychometric testing also as one of the layer to be able to evaluate the person. Don't use as an ultimate thing of only rejecting a candidate based on a psychometric test, right? Because that is the personality. But if you feel that person is not a good fit for a particular role, you can always make that candidate understand that for his personality type or preference, another kind of role might be more important, right? Okay. And psychometric testing does not work. Okay, so that's the 10th myth which I wanted to touch upon, is that psychometric testing does not work. Now, that is completely untrue as well. Psychometric testing with structured interviews, okay, really works very well and saves a lot of time, effort, money if we do it right, right? So, I would request all corporates to focus on um, what are the psychometric tests which are out there which can help you actually grow as a company, help your employees, become better in their job, and how can we make it more easy for them to do their job, also their current job properly, right? So I think as all, I would say, practitioners, HR practitioners, or it could be even learning and development specialists, you need to be able to focus on that, right? Now, as an individual, I want you to be able to understand that if a company is asking you to do a psychometric test, do not get scared of it. Do not worry about that, that these psychometric tests are out there to reject me. They're just to give you that more, I would say, a more chance to be able to be more fair in the evaluation process so that you have an equal chance to be able to get the job. Right? Now, I'd like to actually open the floor, okay, for comments, for questions on psychometric testing and any other myths or misconceptions that you might have heard. And maybe I can help you clear that. So please post in the comments. So I think that would definitely help. Okay, definitely go through the Facebook Live afterwards and do put in your comments any questions which you might be having. And we will retune in a couple of weeks. Okay, thank you, everyone. And this is Niharika Bhargav signing off, founder of Psych for You.